For those of you that don't yet somehow know who Alex Hormozi is, he is this big, jacked American dude who's really good at business. That's the really short version of it. He has millions of followers all around the world. I am one of those followers, and he has a model where he tries to give out huge amounts of free content to help people do business better so that they can then ultimately thrive and grow and then become a certain size so that he can then look to acquire them or bring them into his fold of acquisition.com. So it's a really nice business model. He's ultimately, I think, a genuinely nice guy who gives very good advice. He has already brought out one of his other books previously called $100 Million Offers, which I would highly recommend. I think it's a really interesting read. And then he's taken a long time over this, but he's finally released $100 Million Leads, which is it's the second of 3 books. And I wanted to critique that today because this, of course, is about getting leads. This is in part, one big section of his book is run paid ads. It's literally called Run Paid Ads. So this is a big testament for paid ads that it's still an extremely valuable path for you to be trying to scale your business that you should be considering. But what does he have to say about it? So I wanted to give you a bit of a critique because I run a paid ads agency. I literally manage millions in ad spend, and so know what works, what doesn't work, and how best to go about it. And I literally run this channel. Huge amount of the content on this channel is about how to run paid ads. So I thought I'd give you a critique of some of the bits that I love from the book and also things that I think are missing. So with that said, let's dig into it. Let's go from the top. I'm going to give you some quotes and the rest, and then I'm going to finish with some things that I think are missing from this book that could help to improve on your chances of success. Number one is just a high level. One thing he says, which I really love, is that it's a game of efficiency rather than reach. So reach, when it comes to say SEO or other channels, is much more often the topic. Like, how can I get anybody to see my organic videos on YouTube? How can I get anybody to look at my blog, etc. with SEO? Most other channels, very often for a long time, the challenge is reach. But with paid ads, that is not the case. We can get millions of people. If you gave me 1 million today, I could genuinely get millions of people to look at your website, look at your offering. So that is not the problem. The problem is efficiency. So this is a great way to look at it. It's a really important kind of concept to recognize. All of paid advertising is a game of efficiency.
It's genius, actually.
And then he breaks down the ultimate game of paid ads into 4 main areas. That is 1, where to advertise; 2, get the right audience to see it; 3, making the best ad to actually use on that audience; and 4 is to actually get them to give some form of permission to actually contact them. So that's kind of an email address or inquiry form, or all sorts of different ways that you could do that. I really like this because it's just a very simple summary of the stages that you need to figure out to make a success out of ads, and it just simplifies it really nicely for you.
I understand it.
Another really great quote from it that I love for this part and like looking at the ads themselves is, I don't even think it's from him, I think it's from Ogilvy, is the purpose of each second of the ad is to sell the next second of the ad. I really like this. When you're writing copy or when you're doing a video or anything, you need to make sure that that first second hooks them, and then it sells them and it convinces them to stay with your content, stay with your story, and get to the next second, all the way through to where the call to action is, and then ultimately they choose to go ahead on that call to action. You're selling that call to action only in that last moment. And so that's a really important concept to understand when writing copy. Another great one, which I really loved, which is coming to considering how to set up ads, is he says, my goal when you see an ad is you turn up the volume. So this is a really great concept. It's basically, you should become a pupil of ads. You should look for ads. I had a really great example of this just the other day when I was watching TV on a particular show, which was only on Channel 4, and their system wouldn't let me pay to remove the ads. So I chose to watch it with ads. And this is the first time I'd watched these terrestrial ads, especially in a very long time. And it was just really interesting to me actually about how they approached it, and that these were still running and that they apparently made money from these in some way. I think that the important little adjustments to this is obviously good ads. Not all ads are profitable. He does make a good disclaimer in another part of the video saying, if an ad has continued to run consistently for a good period, then you should expect that it is profitable for them. That isn't always the case, but most of the time it is. So I think that's a good little disclaimer from him basically within that concept.
I like that. So successful.
So thank you very much.
Another thing that I really loved was the what, who, and when kind of formula for writing copy and the story that you're trying to take people through within the ad. I'm not going to go into loads of details. I think you should probably just listen to it. It's on his Spotify podcast or any of his other podcast networks. So you can really easily get this information. He gives it away for free. I'll put a link as well somewhere for you so that you can actually get to that yourself from this video. But that formula is really nice. It walks you through the kind of process of creating the value, how that kind of impacts things. And then the bit that I really liked about it was the time part. So, you know, looking at the historical impact of that decision, the current and then the future. So as an example, as a paid ads agency, you have been using or accepting mediocrity with a bad Google Ads agency, for example, for the last year.
Boo.
Every month that goes by, you have been burning cash, maybe even losing money.
Boo.
So that entire year across all of your budget, you could have already been making millions in ads, whatever. And then putting that all the way into the future, painting this picture of all of the money that you could have made if you'd have had a good ads agency in place, all of your competitors with the right kind of ad platforms in place too. So yeah, this formula that he uses on how to write copy is really nice, and I'd recommend digging into that in the text and audio versions of it when he explains it well in more detail. Another point I wanted to just add in here is he talks about call to actions. Basically have them. This is my big add-on to this, is like so many people when they write copy, they just don't have a call to action. They just put some kind of benefits and they put no link, they put no shop now, go buy it now, some incentive, 10% off, something to actually go and do the thing. Make it clear, make it simple, make it direct, and have extra links. Make it as easy as humanly possible. And I like him adding in here that the URL should be simple. So not long, complicated URLs. You can use software like Bitly, bit.ly is the website, to shorten your URL if you've got problems with your domain, but ultimately make it easy to follow that URL as much as possible.
Please keep it short.
The next thing I loved was the landing pages. Basically make them simple. This was the big takeaway that I took from this. He has these 3 different versions of them, all of them super, super simple. And so this is vital. Like, I always see people investing tens of thousands of pounds into these unbelievably complicated landing pages, and they make one, and then they just assume that that is better than their current, and that's it. But my lesson always from ads is you don't know the answer to what's going to work. The CRO guy does not know what the answer is either. The answer is we should test. We should come up with lots of simple variations and A/B test those. And so what he says is so true. Keep it really simple, stupid is the phrase, because then you're able to make them quickly and test them quickly, and you will find much bigger jumps in performance. We had a client literally just the other week. We went from their base website to some landing pages, and it went from around a 2.5% conversion rate to around a 17% conversion rate. So imagine what that could do for your business if you acted on that advice. The next big topic he talks about is kind of efficiency. So we talked about at the beginning of this, it's all about efficiency, not reach. So it's basically, you know, it's you make this much X and it costs you this much Y. So figuring out that maths is really vital, and he talks about that a lot, and I think that's really good. And a really important thing he says, which I'm going to quote from him, roughly speaking, this is badly quoting: to get a lead machine, you need to get good enough to scale. Good enough is good enough. So you don't need to be making 10x ROAS right from the beginning. You just need to be breaking even. As long as you're breaking even, that cash machine is making you more than it's costing you, and so you can then scale that machine. Obviously, you should always try and make it more efficient, but good enough is good enough. And the 3 phases he talks about to, you know, scaling paid ads, I really like this, because the first one as an entire stage is track the money. So people miss this so much. Like, if you don't know where you're making money, like e-commerce is pretty easy because basically someone makes a sale, that's it. You should be adding things like lifetime value in, which he talks about, which I'll talk about later. But even so, like, you should at the very least have e-commerce tracking in place.
I mean, seriously.
But so many B2B businesses I work with maybe track the free trial sign up, but then they have no idea what happens after that. So you just cannot know if your ads are performing, and you need to have that thoroughly done. I have some other videos that I'll link in this to how to do that, how to approach it, and how important that is.
This is important.
Number 2 is lose money out of these 3 stages. So it's 1, track money, 2, lose money, and 3, print money. 2, lose money. I love this because it's so audacious just to say, you're gonna lose money. Like, that is what's gonna happen. People think that you launch marketing and suddenly just start making loads of money. No, you have to expect that you will lose money months and months and months until you then find enough learnings to optimize enough to the point where you are then succeeding. And I'm not saying you should just burn money for no reason. You do it strategically in the right way, and that's a very big topic to go into. But ultimately, you do have to accept that you will lose money at the beginning.
Come on, man.
And number 3, print money. So this is obviously great fun. I think one of my favorite parts of this is highlighting that, like, once you do find something that works, you should go hard on it. Not just double your budget, but triple, quadruple, 10x your budget. Like, he talks about the kind of comparisons to gambling, and I think this is a good system, but you are the house is how he describes it. So once you've got this magic machine, which every time you put a £5 note in it, you make a £20 note comes back out, well then you should put all your money into that system. Don't put small incremental increases. So if your ads agency, for example, has taken your 2 grand and made you make 20 grand, and they're confident that there's no weird things going on here, and you can just take that 2K and make it 10K, and those numbers will stay the same. Why would you not do that? You should do that. You should take risk when things are working, and people don't do that enough. When we run our own ads as an agency, I talk to myself as my own client often, and I say that to myself. I say, what would you say to the client in this moment? You should say you should fucking double your budget, not add 10%. And so that's what I do, and I've been rewarded well for that advice. He also talks about LTGP versus CAC. So this is lifetime gross profit versus the cost of acquiring a customer. So this is a really nice way to look at it. Not kind of, we talk about ROAS, but it's fair enough because it's within the ad platform, which is return on ad spend. I have another video actually, which I can link about this topic. But ultimately, the thing that really matters is, are you making a profit? And so you should be looking at profit, but you should be looking at lifetime profit of a customer. So a really, really important thing, this is one of my favorite quotes of the entire section, is the difference between the winners and the losers is how much you make off each customer. So if you don't consider the lifetime value, you will always lose this game. There's people, for example, in the skincare space. Let's just, as a really simple example, if I buy a bottle of moisturizer for £100, it's like a premium brand, £100 bottle of moisturizer. This is like the best moisturizer probably. Let's say 10. Let's say a £10 bottle of moisturizer, and we are going to try to make a profit from ads. So if it costs us £10 to make that sale, we're breaking even, or sorry, we're even losing money because maybe it's a 50% profit margin, let's just say. So they make a £5, but we know that that customer comes back and buys on average 3 times, because skincare, people continue to buy that product very often for years. And so if you can convince someone to start to use your product, the lifetime value might be £50. But if you see it only as the first purchase, you're only going to accept, your agency or you running your ads, that you can only spend £5 per conversion.
That's not enough.
Whereas your competitor pays attention to the lifetime value of a customer, so they're happy to spend £20 per customer. So they can spend 4 times as much as you on running ads or doing SEO or any form of marketing. So they will always crush you. You will always feel like a small, insignificant ant against these kind of giants, because they recognize the value of the lifetime value of a customer. They also understand upsell, all of these other ways that you can try and make more revenue per customer. So this is extremely important of a quote from Alex in the book, and you should pay attention to this and consider those numbers within your own business.
It's up to you.
The last one, which I'll take from his book, is don't confuse sales problems with marketing problems. So if you're a B2B company and you're converting at 1% your calls, then it doesn't matter how good your ads are. You should look at what your industry averages are. And if you're not at the industry average, it's very possibly that you have a sales problem rather than a marketing problem. For example, if I'm pumping traffic into my website for people who are searching for premium paid ads agency, and then there's no inquiries from that traffic, well, then it probably means that my website offering somewhere is failing.
Oh, I see.
let's say that I'm getting lots of inquiries, but then it goes into the sales calls with me, and then nobody goes ahead and works with us. Well, then that shows there's a problem with me in the call.
That makes sense.
That isn't the case. I'm perfectly happy with my sales ability, so I don't have a sales problem in my business, and that's why overall my entire marketing works. But this is of course a thing that people think that agencies use as a cop-out, but it is something to consider for you as well. And the way to deal with it is look at the industry averages, because then you'll know for yourself fairly in a kind of, away from the agency perspective, whether you're doing well enough at converting those leads into actual sales. And so here's a few takeaways from me in terms of my overall view of this and some things that I think maybe were missing or could be added to. The first thing I'll say is I think it's overall a great summary. I think he's done a really good job with this. He clearly knows a lot about ads and has been doing this for a very long time. He has a whole section about it in his pivotal book, and it's one of the 4 ways that he talks about. So this is clearly something he finds very effective for himself. I think it's also a huge feat that he's trying to do here. He's trying to tell you how to do paid ads, which means Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, Pinterest, all of them in one place. And not just all of those, but for all businesses. So not just Google ads agencies or Facebook ad agencies or, any other form of consultancy or B2B business that needs leads or in-person brick and mortar companies. So this is like a really broad topic that he's trying to cover here. And so of course this is going to be challenging to try and make it effective for everybody, but I think he did a really good job. I would say a few kind of somewhat negatives or just things I think could be improved upon. One of them would be, I think he does undervalue the importance of the in-platform stuff. So say, for example, you took all of the advice that he gave you, you went into Google Ads, you started running ads, but you don't know that, for example, the display network is trash, and that can start to spam bad traffic into your campaigns. So even if you followed his advice on the kinds of, people to put you in front of and all of these other things, you might just not know about that setting. And you might use maximized conversion bidding strategies, which just don't really work at the beginning if you've not got conversions. And all of these other factors, which can just kind of screw you over. Because to be frank, Google and Facebook and LinkedIn, all of them have their own interests, which is to make money out of you. And sadly, their own help is useless. The reps from each of these companies will not help you. That's half of my life, is to just go on audits and hear about the crap that these reps tell you to do. So that will not solve the problem. And so I do think that understanding the platform is a long journey. He also talks about kind of just dig in for yourself and get going and start learning. One big takeaway from both of those things is find help. So whether it's like watching these videos from people like myself, or it's paying a consultant one-to-one for coaching, or it's hiring an agency is the other way that you can learn, and you can learn with that agency. Well, one of these paths, you're going to just massively increase the likelihood that you're going to avoid these kind of pitfalls that can just ruin ads for you. And you'll just run Google for 6 months and be like, why did that not work? Or run Facebook and the same thing happens. So I think that that's quite a big difference, which is probably underappreciated within the book. Another one which I think he does talk about in terms of the number of ads to create and things for Facebook, but I don't think is enough talked about, is testing. So a really common thing that I see happen, for example, an audit that I just went through recently, a client had created all of these really interesting types of creatives like carousels, images, different types of copy, but they just stuck them all into the ad level of the Facebook infrastructure. And so what Facebook does is it then optimizes for you. And with that, it doesn't do a good job. It basically tries to make a decision within the first day. It's barely spent a tenner. And so it then decides that this one creative was the winner.
Well, I like this one.
And so this client didn't realize this because it kind of hides it away within Facebook and the columns aren't even there and things.
Boo.
But ultimately, none of these creatives have even really been tested properly. And so doing proper testing, understanding how to set up Facebook ads in the right way is really important. I have another video on this topic as well. So I have lots of videos about all of these different topics. I'll finish this video summing this up exactly by this exact point, is really, this is amazing advice that he gives you. He gives it for free, which is spectacular. So Alex Hormozi, if by some chance you watch this or are sent this, thank you for doing everything you do. I appreciate your work and I love your approach to this. I just would suggest digging into lots more resources. So this is an amazing starting point, but use channels like YouTube or pay consultants in one form or another to find that added value. Because I used to run ads. I remember years and years and years ago when I started in the ads game, I tried to do it on my own and I was just shit. I was shit at ads until I started paying consultants consultants to teach me how to do it. And I still do that today. This is the other big thing Alex Hormozi talks about a lot. Spend money, invest, reinvest all the time into training and support. I'm sure he would agree with what I'm saying here. And that will really give you a good chance of doing ads well. Either way, whatever's gonna happen, the best thing you can do is obviously subscribe to this channel. I do tons of content around paid advertising, and I'm sure it will help you on your path if you're trying to figure out ads for yourself, or even just judge somebody else's performance of them doing your ads for you. And yeah, I hope this has been of use. I'm looking forward to Alex Hormozi's third book when it comes out. I'm guessing it'll be $100 million sales, but if you have some other ideas of what it might be about, then let me know. And otherwise, yeah, I hope to see you in the next one.